All right, here's a wild thought for you. What if the right time to worship had nothing to do with tradition and everything to do with your longitude? We're about to dive into this really fascinating document, a decree that mixes theology with, believe it or not, geography. The whole argument is that where you are on the map literally determines your spot in some kind of divine cosmic clock. So the official title of this document is the Decree of the True Sabbath. And you've got to pay attention to that language, right? It's not a suggestion or, a thought paper. It's a decree. The author is straight up claiming absolute authority from the get-go. And that sets the stage for some very bold claims to come. And really, this brings up a huge conflict for our modern world, doesn't it? I mean, what happens when ancient religious law, stuff written way before we had a global clock or time zones, slams right into the reality of how we tell time today? That's the central problem this author is dead set on solving. Okay, so if you're gonna make a proclamation this bold, you'd better have some serious authority to back it up, right? So let's take a look at who actually wrote this decree and where they think that power comes from. The author is a man named Tyson Jay Palmer, but, and this is a big but, he signs it Dei Gratia Rex. That's Latin for by the grace of God, King. So you see, this isn't just some theological paper. No, this is a royal proclamation. He's basically sidestepping all the usual churches and governments and saying his authority comes straight from the top, from the divine. Now, get this. The decree is very specifically dated from Sydney, Australia, time zone AEDT, which is GMT plus 11. And look, these aren't just random, boring details. They are the entire foundation of his argument. As we're about to see, for this guy, your geography is your destiny. All right, so the authority has been declared. Now the decree starts to build its case, kind of like a lawyer laying out an argument in a courtroom. It's going to lay out exactly why the common practice of worshiping on Sunday is, in the author's view, completely wrong. The logic goes something like this. It starts with a pretty straightforward claim. The Sabbath is Saturday. Okay, but then it takes a sharp turn into geography. The sun rises in the east. And by connecting those two dots, the author argues that Australia, since it's one of the first places to see the sunrise, must be the first place to experience the true Sabbath. And this entire geographical argument really boils down to just one crucial number, 11. That's it. Sydney is 11 hours ahead of London. And for the author, that's not just a simple time difference on a clock. No way. It's a massive, critical difference in religious obedience. So try to picture this for a second. The sun is rising on a Saturday morning in Sydney, kicking off what the author calls the true Sabbath. At that exact moment, it's still Friday night in London. So from this point of view, if you wait until Sunday morning to worship, you've completely missed the boat. You're totally out of sync with the planet's natural rhythm. And let me tell you, this decree does not pull any punches. It calls the common practice of Sunday worship a human invention. I mean, that's a direct shot at centuries of tradition, basically calling it a complete departure from divine law. So, the case has been made. The arguments are on the table. Now, the decree shifts gears from just arguing to taking action. It's about to lay down the new rules, the specific commands for how the Sabbath has to be observed from now on. And the first rule is just absolute. The Sabbath is Saturday, full stop. No Sunday swap. The language here is so blunt, it's clearly designed to just shut down any debate. This isn't a friendly suggestion, it's being presented as a cold, hard, unchangeable fact. It's the central pillar for this whole new world order he's describing. And because of where it is on the map, Australia gets this special leading role. It's called the Vanguard of the Sun. Basically, it has the job of leading the rest of the world in how to worship correctly, starting the whole thing off right at dawn on Saturday. It also gets super specific about how this worship should happen. It lays out a whole 4-part practice. You rise at dawn, you sing psalms, you break bread together, and then you rest in the truth. It's a really complete, detailed game plan for how to observe this true Sabbath. But just when you think the rules are totally rigid, the decree throws in a really interesting curveball. There's an exception for Sunday morning that, at first glance, seems to completely contradict the main rule. So here it is. The document allows for Holy Communion, breaking bread and drinking wine or juice, to happen on Sunday mornings. But, and this is key, it's very carefully defined as not being Sabbath worship. It's an entirely separate rite.
So here's the main difference, right? The Saturday Sabbath is the big one. It's the divinely commanded day of rest for everybody. That Sunday communion, though, that's framed as something totally different. It's not a command, it's an act of mercy for the weak. And the way the decree justifies this is by calling it compassion. It's clever, really. It's not a violation of the Sabbath rule, but a special allowance for people who aren't quite strong enough to follow the true path yet. This little move neatly ties up that potential contradiction, all while making the decree sound even more authoritative.
So, how does this all wrap up? Well, the final statements in the decree go way beyond just rules and exceptions. They reveal this huge cosmic worldview that's been underneath the whole thing all along.
And the language here is just, wow, it's incredibly powerful. To ignore this decree isn't just a simple disagreement. No, it's framed as a rebellion against the Creator's clock. That just totally elevates the whole debate, doesn't it? It's not about church rules anymore. It's about being in alignment with the cosmos. What this does is it sets up a clear global pecking order, and it's all based on the planet's rotation. Australia is at the top, leading the way in obedience, just because it sees the sunrise first, and everyone else, including old-school powers like England, now has to fall in line and catch up. It's basically a new world order, dictated by the sun. And the whole thing ends with this incredibly final statement. The seal is set. The Sabbath stands. That language, it sounds so official, like a king stamping a document, but also like something eternal and divine. You can just tell that in the author's mind, the case is closed. The argument is over. Done. In the end, whether you agree with this decree or not, it forces you to ask a pretty fascinating question. In our world of globalized time, ancient traditions, and modern science, which clock are we supposed to follow? Which one dictates the truth? Is it the one on your wall, the one in a holy book? Or is it the one that's literally defined by the rising of the sun?